of Education and Engagement.
Hi.
She's over there, but I'm going to do the welcome, but she is looking forward to meeting everyone, hopefully maybe after the talk. So I'm currently Maayan's president, so I'm kind of welcoming you on behalf of Maayan, and also a very good friend of Bracha, and very excited that she's teaching tonight, and also sponsored this class in memory of my grandmother, my mother's mother, Tzipora Preiser, on her 20th yard site, which was just two or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, day after. So my mother's going to say a few words about my grandmother, and I think almost everyone here knows Bracha, but I'll just do a really quick intro, and then pass it on to my mother, and then to Bracha. So Bracha grew up in the Brighton area. She was a classmate of mine at Maimonides School, and she now lives in Efrat. She's the Menahelet of Midreshet Moriah. And in between, she's done a lot of teaching, learning with kids, with adults, with campers, with kind of everyone. And she's just a really beloved teacher, and she has a lot of interesting ideas to share. So I'm going to turn it over to my mother, and thank you all for coming. Oh, and I'm going to pass around this sign-up sheet. If we already have your email, you don't have to put it in, but it would be great to. Okay. Actually, I'm going to start with that.
So, as Maria mentioned, this year is the 20th yard site of my mother, Tzipora Rivka Preiser, Zachronah Livracha, and I thank my daughter, Maria, for choosing to sponsor this shiur in her memory. Maria's daughter, Mia Tzipora Rivka, is named after her. She was born, I think, 6 months. You were already pregnant at that time. My mother was born in Poland before World War I and grew up in Warsaw as a member of the extended Klepfish family. Through the efforts of a Klepfish cousin, the Klepfish, at some point in the early 1900s, I think, the Av Beitin in Warsaw was a Klepfish, Shmuel Zanvil Klepfish. He is Bruce Mickley, if you know Bruce Mickley, great-great-grandfather, and his brother is, we descend from his brother. Through the efforts of a Klepfish cousin who had married and moved to America, she was able to leave Poland in 1933 and go to Palestine, where her grandmother, a few uncles and aunts, and a few cousins were. They too had gotten there via this cousin who was taking different parts of this extended family, however long, with time gaps, helped them get the paperwork done, I believe, paid for it, and they went to Israel. Unfortunately, when she took the branch of the family, it was my mother's grandfather and grandmother, and her mother was the oldest child, had married already, so she didn't go out. So these aunts and uncles were siblings of her mother. Unfortunately, and the same was not true for immediate family, who were in Poland, and she lost her parents and her brothers in the Holocaust. She often repeated how important it was to her that she was able to rebuild her family in the face of the Jewish tragedies of the century. My mother was a role model for me. She valued her children equally, whatever our personalities, interests, and whatever life direction we chose. She valued living in America as a Jew, even though she was yearning to return to Israel. She visited Berea in Princeton with me, and when she saw the Beit Midrash, which was in Center for Jewish Living, CJL, with the walls lined with Svarim and pictures of Gedolim, she said, "Look how we have a place here. It is so different than it was in Poland." She was a wise woman and appreciated the gifts of learning passed on by the generations before her, and insisted that all 4 of us go to college despite the financial difficulties. At the same time, she was an artist. who appreciated the wonders of nature, took many walks, and reflected this love of nature in her weavings and paintings. Who she was is a legacy for me, my children, and my grandchildren, and we try to carry on her memory in the spirit of her wisdom.
Okay, it's my honor and pleasure to be teaching Torah in her memory and Le'iloi Nishmata. I prepared some sources tonight. We talked about some topics. So we went with All You Need Is Love, which is a fun thing to talk about because it brings up some nice Torah ideas, some good learning, and then also some really much needed thought and maybe some audience participation in trying to think about how to do this, how to fulfill this mitzvah, which is, as we all know, easier said than done. Not everybody we know is so lovable. So it's much easier to build a sukkah and eat in it. Okay, here, I'll give you the rest. I'll keep like a few up front. You can keep some by if somebody comes. It's really fun to be home. I got so nostalgic. I told my siblings as I landed, I said, I don't know what's with me. I'm like so I don't know why. It's not the first time I've come here. I come to Boston to recruit for Midreshet Moriah, but I don't know. As we all get older, something's happening. We had our, what was that, 30th? Is that what you just said? High school? Yeah. We had our 30th high school reunion Zoom this summer as I was sitting in Camp Stone, where my husband and I were. So we did our 30th Zoom. I don't know, we're just old. Everybody looks like their parents. Like, we all look like our parents. It just, it's so bizarre. So I think it's just humbling and a little surreal. So I don't know. I landed last night and I just sort of wanted to like drag all around, And the New England fall is something I miss. Although I have a tree shedding leaves all over my backyard, but I still miss the foliage. So I took a few pictures today. That's gorgeous. Okay. So I want to look with you. I always start with pasuk, meaning no matter what I'm teaching, no matter what we're learning, there's something about like starting in Torah with God's word. Like that's where I just think we should always start, and then we can wander wherever we need to. But we begin with a commandment. It's actually a few commandments in Vayikra Perek Yutet. Okay, kind of obviously a pretty famous pasuk because of the ending, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. The pasuk starts, Lo tisna et achicha b'levavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, v'lo tisa alav chi, lo tikom v'lo titor et b'nei amecha, and v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, or more, grammatically correct, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, right? You shall love, future. Okay, so there's really a lot to say about this pasuk. First, you look at it and you see, okay, we have a lot of commandments here. There's 4 prohibitions. Don't hate your brother in his heart. That's lo tisna et achicha b'levavecha. There's no hatred allowed among us. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, to give rebuke, which is hard. V'lo tisa alav chet, which a lot of commentaries talk about the connection between the giving of rebuke and the don't bear a sin because of him or for him. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. Lo tikom, from the shoresh of nikama in there. I'm always showing students my Hebrew, shout out to Moshe Krohn. Alav Shalom. I reference all of we really, we Maimo kids, we had a good education. I'm just saying, I teach a lot of post-high school kids, and I'm amazed at maybe I was a nerd. And I was obsessed with everything, but I don't know, we had amazing grammar, English, Hebrew. So the dagesh in the kuf, right, tells us there's a nun from that shoresh, and that word we know more, which is nekama, that's revenge. So lo tikom, don't take revenge at all. Lo titor is nitira, don't harbor a grudge, don't bear a grudge. And then the famous v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Okay, so 4 prohibitions, 2 positive commandments. The 2 positive again, hocheach tochiach, rebuking and loving. So, what's this soup, this mix of commandments? When you look at it, do you think it's random? Do you think they flow? Could they have anything in common? If we start with sort of, maybe some of you remember, if you've ever learned some commentaries on that phrase, rebuke, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, v'lo tisa alav chet. And, or almost but, don't bear sin for him. So you're giving rebuke, and somehow it's connected to or related to the don't bear sin. Anybody remember or know or guess or feel sort of why rebuking someone is related to not bearing sin, or how it could be related to not bearing sin, to rebuke a friend. We'll get back to why it's all connected to v'ahavta l'recha kamocha in a minute. But if you've ever rebuked anyone, do you see that it can or cannot be connected to bearing sin or carrying
Bearing sin means putting up with someone's sin?
So let's go with that. Right? One Mefarish says, yeah, like meaning, so what does it mean to you? Right? So go ahead, give rebuke,
Yeah.
because almost don't let that sin sit there, it's on your
Yeah.
record too now.
Yeah.
Right? Which is one way to look at it, meaning if someone is doing something wrong and I speak up, I'm stopping it. See something? Say something. That's how the Torah teaches us. See something, say something. So and don't sit by, kind of like l'talmod al dam reacha, don't sit there, when something's happening, when someone's drowning. So here, someone is doing something wrong, maybe someone's stealing, maybe someone's gossiping, maybe someone's being judgy, or someone's being rude in some way, or someone's hurting your feelings, and say something. Lo chiach. I always love the word lo chiach. For sure easier said than done, we'll say in a minute, but technically in Hebrew, a hochacha is a proof. When you say give me a hochacha, give me a proof. So really lo chiach is to show. Like I always think of when Eliezer was at the well, looking for this bride for Yitzchak. And he said to God, okay, listen, I have a plan. If she can come and be kind and give water to the animals also in addition to everybody, and then he says, ota hochachta, you have shown that she's the one. And I always think of that with tochacha, because technically, hochiach tochiach et amitecha should be a beautiful moment where you show someone. You just show someone what they did to you. Like if I were to go to my husband and just say, I just want to show you that in that conversation at the Shabbos table in front of everyone, you really embarrassed me when you said that. I was hurt. That's all I'm saying. I just show them my pain or my experience. That's enough, ideally, for a person to say, oh my God, I'm so glad you told me, thank you so much. It turns into this rebuke. You should have taught Lashon Hara, and you forgot to bench, and it has this yucky connotation of don't rebuke, and don't give me Mussar. It's all this don't give me Mussar. But it's not really, Techa is a Torah command. We need to keep each other on the right and narrow path. We all owe it to each other, to take care of each other, to make sure this boat doesn't sink. If you forgot to say Birkat Hamazon, then yeah, I would assume you want me to remind you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it gets a little awkward, I think, when when you start bringing examples of your uncle who's not religious, who doesn't want you telling him to bench, and you're fine, your husband doesn't need you saying go to minyan, I get it. But ideally, in your best relationships, isn't it so that you just say, that really hurt me, or that was hard, and then that's enough, and then the person goes, I'm so sorry, and doesn't do it again, ideally, okay? So, don't stand by as the other person sins. Now, also, it brings up this idea of giving Mussar, giving tochacha, becomes very hard, because you have now the ability to maybe embarrass the person you're correcting. So I correct you, I correct my husband in front of the kids. So now that was embarrassing to him. So two wrongs didn't make a right. So now it also could be seen as ochiach tochiach amitecha, but v'lo tisal avchay. But don't do that in a sinful way, right? So it gets complicated. Okay, so it's fun to analyze. There's also another one that if you look at Mefarshim where it's rebuke, don't sin. Meaning, how am I sinning by not rebuking? So if you think of the consequences of not giving rebuke, not showing, we'll say it nicely, not showing the pain, not showing the hurt, not showing the way that the person did something wrong, okay, now I move on and forget his sin, which I'm an accomplice to, and yay, I didn't embarrass him or hurt him by saying anything, but I move on now with what feeling? Meaning now I continue my day with feelings of resentment, feelings of judgment, and maybe even feelings of misunderstanding, miscommunication. So I've moved on with a lot of sinful thoughts and maybe even now behaviors like the nekama that comes next, the revenge and the bearing a grudge. And so some Mefarshim talk about the idea of, Ibn Ezra mentions this idea, give rebuke, don't keep going because you might be sinning. You're assuming things about the person that aren't even true. Let him explain what he did. Let him say his side. Let him apologize. You can fix this. And instead you're walking around now with new chatayim of your own because you didn't want to discuss. Okay, so it's like it's a complicated moment in a relationship, but this conversation here of don't have hatred, deal with it, talk, show the person what's up. You're feeling hatred, talk. Talk in a kind way, talk right away, talk in a in a productive way. And then lo tikom v'lo titor, so that we're not doing the revenge thing, and we're not doing the hard grudge. Come on, guys, work it out. V'yahavta l'reach kamocha. And then it makes it sound like, and then you'll all love. And that's it, like happy ending. It literally started with sin'ah, like it started with hatred. And after just like a few pieces of advice, we're all good now. Now we're like, in love. So of course that doesn't really sound like it's that simple. And we wonder, first of all, if the Torah can really command that. Meaning the actions, I can see maybe, but do you really feel like that last thing should be seen as a commandment? V'yahavta l'reach kamocha? Like, is that seriously one of my 613 commandments? I go to bed at night and I'm upset at my kid's teacher, or I'm upset at my boss, I'm upset at my neighbor, I'm annoyed. I don't like what they're doing. I am judging. That was a rude thing to do, or I am harboring resentment because I'm angry at the way they're treating my child or something like that. So what other mitzvot do you think of when you think about, like, how can the Torah command me to love someone? Really? Like, I have to feel bad now, like I forgot to wash, and I don't love so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so. And like, okay, so now I have that, and all the other things I'm doing, What other mitzvot have you ever said that to yourself? About, like, I can't believe the Torah, I can't believe God expects me to feel or think. Like, what are our other feeling and thinking commandments?
As opposed to action.
Correct. Where you really have a right to just raise your hand and ask, really? That's a commandment? Because that's what it sounds like here. And I like that the Torah seems to be giving me like a recipe, but it's not going to be that fast, and it's not going to work that well always, and at the end of the day, I'm left with this guilt of v'yahavta l'reach kamocha that, no, I do not have right now. I'm working on it, but there are, as you know, not to start any stuff. I don't need to like fan the flames of sinah, but there's a lot of tension in Israel with people who are helping to fight off the bad guys who want to kill us and take our homeland away from us, and people who are not helping as much, or not helping in the way that the people who are helping think you should be helping. And there's a lot of sinah brewing, and it's not good. It's not good. God doesn't like it, and I don't know what we're all gonna do, but I go to bed at night and I'm like, sorry, I didn't do that one today. Like, v'yahavta l'reach kamocha I didn't do. Okay, so where else have you ever, or now, like, can you think of any other feeling mitzvot or thinking mitzvot that God, you're like, I can't believe we're commanded to feel or think a certain way?
What was I commanded to love God?
Mamash. Okay. V'yahavta et Hashem Elokecha. So I was, I literally, like, I meet up with all these older students. Here's Abby. She's an older student. And I meet up, and I was talking to a girl who I hadn't talked to in a while. And we really were not in touch. And she saw I was coming to Tanach, and I said, if anybody wants to talk. So we were talking, and she's catching me up on, like, real tragedy. And it's hard. She's like, I don't know, it's like hard to daven. I'm like, yeah, totally hard to daven. This is, you're on a little bit of a break. You and God are on a break, So, like, even that commandment. So now she's supposed to go to bed at night and feel bad that she didn't say her shachari, and that she's not fulfilling v'yahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Sorry. Okay, even anochi Hashem Elokecha. Right? Most of us take that as a commandment. Not everybody, which is interesting. When you start looking at these feeling, thinking commandments, and you look at Mefarshim and, all the commentaries and all the philosophers, not everyone takes I am Hashem, your God, as a commandment. Most of us grew up thinking that's the first of the 10 commandments. But it's not a commandment. It's Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. That's not a commandment. Not to be chutzpahdik. It's like, this room is messy, and your kid's like, okay, and you're like, excuse me, clean up. So, like, most commentaries take that as, okay, we'll believe in you, God. And that's the first commandment. The Ibn Ezra says it is not a commandment. Nobody in the Torah ever calls those Aseret HaMitzvot. They're called Aseret HaDvarim, from Dibur. They're 10 utterances. But the first one, according to some, you could look in the Ibn Ezra, is I am the mitzaveh, I am the Lord your God. Paro doesn't tell you what to do, I do. And now here comes 9 commandments. And there's 9 commandments. 10 utterances, 9 commandments, one's an intro of the mitzaveh before the mitzvah. So like, there's one already that everyone, sort of, is it a mitzvah, is it not a mitzvah? Can you really say believe in God? It's kind of ironic. Your God telling me to believe in God, that's convenient. Yeah. Okay, what were you going to say? Which one?
No, I was about to say maybe also V'samachta b'chagim.
Yes, I also think of that. Nachon. Rejoice, right? Rejoice on your holidays. Well, we have a friend when we were growing up here, again, you'll remember, a friend, who, Erev Pesach, one lost one parent, one lost one parent. The 2 of them went off to bury parents Erev Pesach, came back to their home, sat down at the table, made Kiddush for Kadesh, no Shiva, for 2 grandparents. And the 3 kids sit down for Kadesh, and the father starts crying. And the kid says, I remember, because my father, principal at the time, I remember years later he told us the story. And because the father told my father. And the kid said, Abba, why are you crying? You're supposed to be happy, it's Pesach. What looked like off from the guy? So you think about these mitzvot, and they really, each one is like fun to explore and see like, wait, what, am I crazy? Like, do other people think this? Like, you look at commentary, it's fun. Like, you really start to see. It's like Rav Soloveitchik has that famous piece in Al Tshuva that I always show kids about the kiyum mitzvah and the pu'ulat mitzvah, that there are some of these commandments that are the feeling ones, like when the Torah says to believe, to think, to feel, okay, hold on. We're going to give that an action. So like for Simchat Yom Tov, that's eating meat, drinking wine, bringing a korban in honor of the Chag, the extra korbanot. The inner Simcha, I hope it'll come, but like, no, there's a kiyuma mitzvah, there's a fulfillment, and there's a pu'ulat mitzvah. The pu'ulah everybody could do. You can bring your korbanot, and you can eat meat, and you can drink wine, but no, I can't command you to be happy when you buried a parent erev Chag. But you try for the Chag. Can you try? We cancel shiur for that. Try, but it's hard. So there are ways to think about it. Okay, so if you start to think about so almost like the hardest answer that we'll come back to is yes, God is telling you to work on it. And no, it's not like sukkah, which is build a sukkah, sit in it, check, you're done, go to bed feeling proud of yourself that you're a great Jew. This is a hard one, and this is probably going to take your whole life. This is one that's a constant. It's a constant. Working on loving people is a constant, because people bother me, I have buttons that get pushed, I'm irritable, I'm hangry, you're my opposite, you dafka say things that are so grating, I have, what's that thing where you can't hear people chewing? Dysophonia, whatever goes on, right? So like, I don't know, so all my life I might be working on this, and same with belief in God. Well, we all go up and down, There's those of us for whom what happened October 7th was a surge in emunah and bitachon, and there were those who took a big, step back. So it's up and down in all of these things. So that we'll come back to that at the end, because it does sort of take a lifetime, but if we start first with some of these actions that could get us there, so the Ramban, which is sort of like the most famous, so he talks about this much more in terms of, okay, let's do something practical, right? The tam, the meaning, haflaga, it's exaggerated, it's hyperbolic, it's not to be taken like so literally. It's impossible. God doesn't literally expect you to love somebody else, kamocha, like yourself. That's never happening. V'od, shekvar ba Rabbi Akiva, v'limeid. Rabbi Akiva already taught us, by the way, technically, halachically, l'maaseh, tachlis, chayecha kodmin l'chaye chavercha. Actually, if there's one parachute, I will go for it and let you fall. That is halachically what you're supposed to do. There's only enough water for one of us to survive. So halachically, I'm allowed to say me first, like that. Not everybody does that in those last minutes, and we have situations, but So we're actually taught your life comes first. So it can't be literally kamocha. Ella, he suggests, mitzvat HaTorah here is sheyahuv chaveiro bechol inyan kasher yohav et nafsho bechol hatov. Love him regarding everything, like you love for yourself. Bechol hatov, right? V'tachein ba'avur shalom amar v'yavta et re'acha kamocha. Do you remember the Rambam says that? Notice, the pasuk does not say love your fellow Jew the way it talks about everything else that has a verb and then a direct object. Eat the apple. V'yachalta et hatapuach. Okay? Tachzik et hayad. Hold the hand. It doesn't say v'yavta et re'acha. It says v'yavta le re'acha. So he says v'shvautam b'milat le. It's comparing them, it's connecting them with the lamed. V'chein v'yavta lo kamocha, about the ger, when it talks about converts and foreigners. Which means sheyeh perusho lashvot ahavat shnehem b'da'ato. It's much more about like what's going on inside. I need to have feelings. I need to try to wish. Ki pe'amim sheyohav adam et re'ehu b'dvarim yiduim lativo. Sometimes you love somebody like with I'm sending you good vibes, right? I want you to have good things, but osher, but not b'chachma. Like I don't want you to do better than me on the test, but I really want you to like find someone to marry. Because there's like a little bit of competition there, you know? Stuff like that. If you loved somebody with for about everything, then yachpotz sheyizkeri eyu ahuv lo be'osher u'benechasim v'kavod u'bedat u'bechachma. Everything. You should want him to have everything. V'lo sheyishaveh elav. Not that he's like you, aval yachafetz b'libo le'olam. Sheyehu yoter mimenu b'chol tova. You're just wanting more. It's like the way you want good for your kids, the way you want success for your loved ones. That's how you should be. I want people to succeed. I want people to have good. I wish this for you. Okay, shalotia pchituta kin'ah hazot b'libo. That we not have that lowly, disgraceful kinah thing, the jealousy. Let's not do that between us. Aval yohav birabot hatova l'chaveiro. Kasher adam osel nafsho v'lo yitain shiurin bi'ava. Just, you don't have an amount. You don't hold back love. You wish good things for people. Something easy like that. You can do it, right? You can be loving towards. You can send out goodwill to everybody, and you do wish people well. We'll talk at the end. I want to show you some tips I've discovered. I'll share for people you don't like and how to cultivate a little love. So one of them has to do with like wishing people well. I daven for you. I wish you well, right? That's like we do that. You know, we really hope for that. Okay. The next source actually brings some great practical things that we would do for someone. This is Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg in the late 1700s, okay, the 18th century. The idea that I want to do good for someone, he literally lists here 9 kinds of things that would look like. Besides the Ramban leaving it as like wishing someone well and sending love and I hope you get the job and of course I wish you marriage and kids and success. He says, let's talk practically. Ritzo no lomar, the pasuk here is saying, Kol ofanei hatov v'chesed, she'adam maskim b'dato, v'gomer b'libo, she'ro'oi lo lekabel me'avo. What you think you should get from a loved one, what do you think is the basic, like a good neighbor would? A nice roommate should. A sibling to each other. Come on. A sibling? Just a basics and niceties, right? Whatever you think you should get from someone, right? Reuven rotza mishimon ahuvo shitnehegimo ke'ohev ne'eman b'chol advarim. Let's think of some practical things. Let's take this to somewhere like, let's give a list. This is what I think a friend should do for me. This is what I'm expecting. Okay? Nothing more necessarily, but like nothing less. Like, genuine. Don't be disingenuous. Don't be sarcastic. Don't like do that Geneva trick me thing. Just be who you are and let's like call a spade in terms of just friendship and let's have everything out on the table. Okay, lo biziyuf, no forgery, no fakeness. Or shitneheg be kavod tamid. Just kavod, respect. Don't interrupt. Don't steal. Don't undermine. Don't talk about me behind my back. Just literally common respect. Or gimel. Sheyidrosh shlomi tamid. Lidrosh shalom, literally, I think, or not even literally, but like the way we use it, it's like to literally say hello. Lidrosh shalom, like Timsor Dash, right? Give drishat shalom. Just say hi. It's the good morning, it's the hello, that's basic. But also lidrosh shalom, ki chen r'oi l're'im ahuvim, lihiyot b'shalom, tamid. Lihiyot b'shalom, which is getting a little trickier, because now you're talking about lirdof sometimes shalom, to seek. Lidrosh ish bishlom reyehu, to really seek out well-being, right? How do you seek out someone's well-being? How do I make sure to take care of someone else? Or how do I chase peace? If you've ever been in a situation where like peace was not apparent, I have 2 girls now sharing a room in seminary. I don't know who set them up. One of them said it was her aunt. Okay, her aunt does not know the other girl. Because the 2 of them could not be more different in communication style. One of them is very assertive, say it, not afraid of confrontation, like a big girl. And the other one is, it can't, like, the other girl raises her voice, she's like, I don't even remember what she said, I just got so nervous, she started yelling at me. And the other girl's like, I was not yelling, I wasn't yelling. Okay, it's like, it's just not gonna work unless they both undergo some real serious time with like, somebody who can explain, okay, the way she communicates, the way you communicate. And these kids are 18, like they're just learning their own, love language. They have to learn another person's already, So stuff like that takes a lot of like lirdof shalom. You're chasing peace. It doesn't always come so naturally. You sometimes really need to go get a book about how to interact with people like that, or ask somebody they know what's the best way to say, like it's hard. So lidrosh shalom, the easy one is hi, good morning. But really, like, lihiyot b'shalom tamid means a little bit more, say what's going on, talk it out, don't hold on to things, but it's like, that's hard, okay? Sheyishtatif b'tsa'ari. What does that mean? I just expect basic friendship, like basic v'afta l'recha kamocha. This is what I think I would give, and this is what I think you should give. L'shtatif b'tsa'ari means just to participate, to be with me in times of trouble. Someone's sitting shiva, you bring soup, you sit there for a few minutes, you write a card, you send a text, just basic. That's it. Okay. Sheikabel oti b'sever panim yafot. That's the smile. Don't look down, don't ignore, don't look away, just basic. She'adunoti l'kaf zchut. Like, come on, assume the best. I'm not an evil person, but why would you assume that I saw you and ignored you? What do you want? Why? Just assume the best. Assume people didn't see. Assume they must have not meant that. They didn't know. That's just basic, like what I would think a friend would do. She'itnadev begufo be'eze tircha ktana b'shvili. Just a little bit, right? Begufo, with his body. I'm not talking about money. I'm just talking about like, just, I don't know, to give me a ride somewhere, anyway you're going, or can you just give me someone's number? Can you meet me there to show me the way? Can you wait for me? Things that have to do with my guf, not anything else, things I can do for you, okay? Or 8, shitnadev lo shiali b'dvar mu'at mimamono. A little bit of help, I need a quarter, okay? I had one of these, I hope mostly women watch this. If the men do, I'm sorry, this is a very woman example, but it was so great. I was in the airport the first day I landed, I'm in Detroit. And I'm in the bathroom. It's like, there's like nobody online. I come out of my stall, I'm washing my hands, someone else is washing hands. There's like maybe 2 other stalls that people are in, and a woman goes, does anybody have a pad or a tampon? And like no one says anything, so I go, sorry, I see one of those old machines here from 1956. Do you want me to try it? Let me see it, because I knew I had brought quarters. I literally take out a quarter, I put it in, I pull the thing, tampon doesn't come out. I go, oh no, okay, I'll try the pad. Put in the same quarter, pull the thing, out comes this like cardboard box with God knows what's in it. So I go, where are you? Okay, I hand it to her. And I'm like, I'm sure it's gross, but like you'll come out and go buy something, and like I gave it to her. And I left on purpose. I thought it was so fun that it was like anonymous. I had no idea who she was. She has no idea where I was. It was like a fun girl code story. Do you know what I mean? And like, you think like, yes, I spent a quarter on her. That was my quarter. And like, there was something about that was just like, How much would you spend for a stranger? You know, do you give the guy a dime when he's short a dime? Of course. A quarter? $1? Would you give a stranger $5? Like, so, and then a friend. How much would you give a friend? $100? $1,000? I don't like, but like something about money, a little bit, right? That's what he says, a little bit. Okay, and then tet, shelo yitga'eh alai. What's that one? Yitga'eh is like gava. I expect basic, not to hold yourself over me, not to think you're better than I am, the haughty, like the looking down, I can feel you looking down at me, at what I do, at what I earn, at the number of kids I had, at where I live. There's something about, it's a snotty vibe I'm getting from you. It's not nice. So Rav Mecklenburg in this Perush HaKtava Kabbalah on this pasuk says, I think v'ahavta le'reacha kamocha, even more than the Ramban, more than just be loving in your head towards and wish good things, be loving. He's like, love, basic. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Lend them $1, don't talk about them behind your back, say good morning, come on, you could do it. You could do it. You know, and that's it. That's all it means. Everybody could do that. Which means that, again, we're not really forcing people to feel bad they don't love someone. All you have to do is be nice, and you can feel good that you've fulfilled this commandment, right? Like, we haven't really pushed so much on it. He says at the end, v'hu maskin, he decides for himself, b'sichlo, v'gomer b'libo, hu dvarim rabim ke'ila. Say another bunch of things like that, just basic things. Avalo yaskin b'sichlo, sheshimon yitain lo kol hamamon shelo. No one ever assumes Shimon should give me his money. I don't really expect you to like sell your house and all your belongings to give me money so I can do something, you know? That's not what I'm expecting. The whole rechusho, like everything, no. That's not what I'm expecting. It's a little weird, right? Come on, nobody ever expects that me'imo. V'lo yachpotz me'ito. He would never expect or desire or want that. Ki hada'at lo yisbol zeh. The mind really can't suffer that, really can't. That's not true. And logically, that doesn't make any sense. That the obligation I have is to sell my home so that it's too much. The boundaries are too blurred there. Like, I have my own life and I'm in my life pursuing happiness and all of that, and you're in yours, and I have to be caring, but I do not have to take responsibility for everybody with my own money and sell my house, but basic.
Well, those are the kinds of things that would lead to resentment, which is
Correct.
exactly the opposite.
Mamash.
I'm sorry.
It would lead to resentment. There's a point at which
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And I think that's the lo yispol. I wouldn't be able to suffer it. Meaning, I can't tolerate, we say in English. I can't tolerate that. I think that's what it means. You wouldn't be able to carry on in your life. Knowing that in order for someone to go through IVF treatments, you literally sold all your stocks and your house. And now every time you look at that baby, what you were happy to do for them, and also not really so happy to do for them, and you're kind of annoyed that it fell on you, and aren't sure if you should have, and it's not gonna work long term, it's not sustainable. Which is part of, I think, a very interesting part of this, working on it, like wondering for yourself sometimes, what is it, how much can I give of myself honestly before I feel like I've lost myself and now the resentment grows. It's really hard. And I think that's probably part of what we all struggle with when we're keeping this mitzvah constantly. Like every day, I'm like, okay, I think it was too much. Take back, I lost myself, and the ahava got messy. It's not even ahava anymore. How weird is it that ahava, in one misstep, you're up the sinna track. Now I'm like headed towards hatred. Out of love, the too much became too much, you know?
I think one of the really interesting things about this list is that it stays within that boundary, but also
Like very tiny, very fair?
right.
Okay.
It stays within the boundaries of things that are unlikely to cause you to go in that direction.
Right, nothing here sucks me dry.
Right, and or makes me resentful or whatever. Although I guess sometimes if you're in a place of if you're in a place of conflict or tension with somebody, that could be the case. And I think that's where it goes back to the original pasuk. But what I wanted to say was this list are things that if you practice them, you're changing yourself.
Because for a lot of people, it's not natural to say good morning, or it doesn't feel like it comes out, right? I look at you and I'm feeling yucky.
Yeah, you have to, if there are things that you have to consciously do,
Right.
if you want to follow this pattern, you might have to consciously start doing these things, but I think that there are things that if you consciously start doing them, they become unconscious and they change you in terms of how you interact with other people. And I think that also gets back to what is it telling you about how you interact with, how we all interact with each other. as a
Okay, good,
community.
correct. And that's what's coming next in a second, meaning I'm gonna pause and just show you the Rambam for a second because it's connected to what we're talking about. But then what you're saying about how, hold on, this is interesting, because you are saying just say good morning, just give $1, just go pick them up and take them to the wedding also. But I think what might start happening is you will be moving in the right direction towards being loving, having loving thoughts, being like, wheels might start turning, right? Which is what we're talking about in a minute. I just want to throw into this mix that the Ketava Kabbalah says, which is even more general nice behavior that we always talk about, is also literally halachically included in this mitzvah, according to the Rambam. Meaning, this list we just had of like 9 very cute, basic things that I could keep on my mirror that I should be doing for all the people I know, neighbors, friends, relatives, basic. The Rambam actually says something we're like more familiar with, which is in the Mishnah Torah, in Hilchot Avel, okay? Mitzvot aseh shel divreihem, dirabanan, a rabbinic law on the books, like the Tilat Yadayim, before bread, and shahakal before candy, like dirabanans, okay? Levaker cholim, ulenachem avelim, these are mitzvot dirabanan. When you go to the hospital, or you go over to someone's house to say hi and to visit after surgery or before, ulenachem avelim, when we all go to shiva houses, ulahotzi hamet, to actually be part of a funeral, to bury someone, ulachnis hakala, we all call it achnasas kala, but it's mamish to marry someone off like in the shtetl, or the Amish, when you all put up the house, like, we gotta get this girl into her new home. Ulilavota orchim, that idea of accompanying guests out and making them feel comfortable. Ulit asek b'chol tzorchei hakvura, right? The idea of burial. Laseit ala katif, even to carry on the shoulder, literally like the pallbearers. V'leilech lefanav, v'lispod, v'lachpor, v'likbor, real buried people. That idea that people take the shovel, put a little dirt, mamash. V'chein l'sameach hakala ve'achatan, and we go and we dance. U'l'sa'adam b'chol tzorcheihem, and to make sure they have a seuda. Ve'elu ein in general, gemilut chasadim shebigufo. We're not talking about how much money you're giving to the Chevra Kadisha. We're not talking about how much money you're giving to a shul for hachnasas kala. We're talking about mamish having it in your backyard, or giving her the towels and the sheets, or going to the burial because no one else is going and shovel the dirt and put this person in the ground. Like real gemilut chasadim b'gufo, with my body. She'ein lahem shiur, that have no amount. There's no amount. This is not money where $100 and stuck is enough and 10% and up to a 30%. Okay. The person has to be married, the person has to get married, the person needs to sit shiva and not be alone. Like, these are the communal responsibilities that we all do for each other or should do for each other, or that the rabbis are trying to make sure every community that we don't forget each other, that the sisterhood is for and the head of the committees are for. And it's mitzvot dirabanan, and the Rambam says, Afal pi shekol mitzvot elu midivreihem, even though they're dirabanan, that's the term, harei hein bichlal v'yavta l'recha kamocha. These are under the umbrella of V'yavta l'recha kamocha. Like, what did you think the Torah meant when it said that? What do you think God had in mind? Come on, ask God for examples. V'yavta l'recha kamocha. Like what? What would God say? What do you think I mean? So the Rambam says, Chazal said, this is what we're going to say God means, and we're putting it on the books. This is a dirabanan mitzvah. Again, the way washing our hands for bread is. The way lighting Hanukkah candles is, the way reading Megillat Esther is. When a person is sitting Shiva, you need to go. You need to go. It's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's like so interesting, okay? Kol hadvarim ha'ela, kol hadvarim she'ata rotzeh, sheya'asu otam lecha achirim. What you want others to do for you, Aseh ata otan la'achich, b'Torah u'b'mitzvot. A fellow Jew, someone who's with you on this team of being Jewish and keeping God's Torah and making a Kiddush Hashem by observing His commandments and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, then we take care of each other. We're teammates. We take care of each other. And you're down, I help you up. Right? You're sitting Shiva, I don't leave you alone without food. So that's, the Rambam really reminds us that when we say this, we actually mean it very practically. Not just that really great list that Aktava Kabbalah came up with, which is helpful and I could do that, but also like these bigger things that are just pashut mitzvot that we think of. That the Rambam, just if you learn Halacha, you see it's actually like the Rabbanan's under the head, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
She'ein lahem shiur?
Yeah.
You said about
There's
money.
no, measurement, sure.
No, I know that, but you said, you said something about money, but it strikes me that it really means you can't say, yeah, I went to a funeral once, check.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking you can't quantify it, but you're right. Like I was thinking there's no price tag. You can't put a price tag on that. I can't, because in other areas of halacha we say don't spend a third more on hidur mitzvah, don't spend more than 10th on tzedakah. Like, here, I don't know what to tell you, but you're right. It's kind of like that, meaning I know there are, it's like these women who are doing, I can't, especially when you're living in Israel, like I couldn't do anything after October 7th other than just pick up in the morning and just go back to work. Like I can't. But my daughter-in-law went to a yeshiva, they call it Yeshiva Drisha. And the Rabbanit, the head of Yeshiva Drisha, this Chana Dreyfus, is really an amazing woman who spent weeks after October 7th doing that Chevra Kadisha work on the women who were brutally murdered in Otavaza. I can't, I still haven't read anything she wrote about it, I can't. But there's no I'm tired. There was no shiur. There's no shiur.
But there's no selling your house either and your stocks.
Correct. And so for that, which is actually interesting, because for the money stuff, isn't this interesting? For the money stuff, there is a shiur. You're not supposed to sell your house to help them. You're not supposed to go into poverty to give tzedakah. But with this, you're not supposed to collapse like some of those Zaka people did at the beginning, where they died. It was too much. That was too much. But you are right that it's not, I went to one funeral and done. If there's 7, there's 7. I don't know what to tell you. Do you know what I mean? And if there's an epidemic and everybody has corona, then yeah, it's a lot of people making soup and cookies, and you take a turn and I'll take a turn. Like, I don't know, it seems to be that it ain't shiur for things that are the guf, although I don't know if that's literally true, because you don't do it till you collapse. But it's an interesting thing to think about. You're right, that's okay, good, fair tangent, okay. Okay, so let's keep pushing. So I'm doing little things, I'm doing big things, I'm focusing on actions. So I can do this, you still haven't really said to me you have to work on it, really deep down. I could read your mind, I could read your heart, we're okay if it's sending good vibes and being nice and even doing these mitzvot rabbanan, I'm good. And then comes this part about but I think it's gonna start to change you. I think really the actions, I think the point behind them is guys, you can do this. You can be loving and you'll feel loving, which is where we start to go to that Rav Dessler beautiful point, right? Remember how this famous point that Rav Dessler wrote in his Michtav Eliyahu, Rav Eliyahu Dessler, okay, who was famous for being in Gateshead for many years, but was in Israel also. And what he says is the following. When he's talking about chesed, he says, Kan she'ela omedet lefani, in number 5 here. Ha'im netina toldat ha'ava o lehefech. Ha'ava ba'a min ha'netina. It's that thing that we all think about, do I love because I give, or do I give because I love? And I feel like we all really know the truth, which is, we have been habituated, we've had the hergel, we've been accustomed to thinking about giving as a tolda, as a consequence of love. I love you, therefore I want to give you. Ki la'asher yohav ha'adam yitivlo. The person you love, you will do good for. Aval hasbara shniyahi, but the second way to look at it is, ki yohav ha'adam prima asav. A person will love what they produce, what they do, something outside of me over there. I did that, I gave that, I love that. That's me over there. I've extended myself. Behargisho asher chelek min atzmiyuto bahemhu. A part of me is in you. Why do I love my students who go through my seminary more than I love other students who went through seminaries? They're all great. I've met some of their friends. But like, let's be honest. That's my dedication and hard work. Like, that's me. Which is why I love my kids more than I love your kids. Because it's not that I love kids. I don't like all kids. But I seem to love mine. And it's not because I bore them, because you can adopt, and you can foster, and you can, like, you know, I have students at 18. It's not because they're little and cute. It's because there's a piece of me in them. It's because I've toiled. It's actually ki et atzmo yimtza bahem. What do I love about my kids? The me in them. What do I love about my students? The me in them. Which is a little bit ironic, of course, because it kind of admits that I don't really love other, I love me. And if me is an other, then I love other. But like, that's the truth. And it's like a really amazing nugget of truth and wisdom. Because if we can all just laugh and admit, I mean, that is kind of true. You know, so then it's true. Like, think about an art project. I'm not an artist. I mean, I like to collage. But like, even if I work on a collage, if I sat there and worked on like a fun collage, I don't know, that means a lot to me. That's something that I worked on. You know, paintings and the way you do your home. Like, I put a lot of time into this. You know, versus something you didn't. Ha'ahava hazot hi asher tavo b'li safek min hanitina. Rav Dessler says, there's no doubt about it. There's a love that comes from giving. You give, you love. Try it. Klalo shel davar, ma she'yitein ha'adam lezulato lo yovan mimenu, ela zohi hitpashtut atzmuto. It's the spreading out of myself. It's the oozing out of me into the world. You know, Bruria's helping me do laundry tonight. She's in my laundry. Like, Bruria comes with me on the road trip. There's Bruria in my socks. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't do your laundry. Like, she's in my laundry. Like, you spread out. You tutor someone. You give someone directions. You help think about, like, what you did, that woman with the pad. Like, we're bonded. Do you know what I mean? Like, I gave her. It's like a really fascinating thing to think about. And it really means that we can do this. Ki yargish asher gam lo chelek b'chaveiro ze asher natan lo. And zoya dveikut. That's dveikus. Adam lezulato. A person to the other. Asher nikra la ahava. Guys, that's what ahava is. Right? He talks about how the root of ahava is have, which means give. That's just what it is. Hitbaer, it turns out, right? Ki l'kol adam yesh nitzotz koach hanitina. We all have that spark of giving. We're all givers. We're all outward bound. She'ilmalei kein haya ha'olam charev. I mean, if not for that, the world would be barren. Lo hayu noseim nashim. Nobody would ever want to marry a woman. Meaning, you're talking to a person, and go back even farther, it's only lately that, like, having a wife could actually make you money, because she will bring in another income. Right? In the olden days, you take on a wife, you acquire responsibility. You know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to get married. That means you take responsibility for this woman who doesn't work. You have to feed her and the kids she's going to have. Which, yes, are your kids who will help on the farm, but like, it's a bing deal, which is why I think, you know, I never, after October 7th, with all these men who are going to fight and who are being killed, I, Pete had this realization, Also, I think I happened to be learning something and it talked about a battle, like in the days of Yeshiva or something. I don't know, all of a sudden the numbers of people dying in a war, like, obviously became very stark. And all these wives and all these women, and now like my daughter, I was telling people like, you know, my daughter's trying to date and like all these guys are at war. Somebody set her up, he said yes, and then the next day he texted her, hi, I'm so sorry, I just got drafted up north. Bye, bye-bye. And then it happened again, bye-bye. And then another one that a friend wanted to set her up with her nephew. He just came back, he's like, a little out of sorts. Okay, like, there's no men around. So I was thinking to myself about how in the olden days when 27, like read those numbers in Tanach, 27,000 men were lost in battle in the days of Yeshua, and then the battle, and they lost, and 3,000 people were killed. Right, that's like a lot of people. We throw up at what, it's 7. And now you're talking about 3,000 men died in a battle, it's ill, right? So I think that's why, I mean, I don't know, I never thought about it, but I think that's why men like need to marry more than one woman. I don't think there's enough men for the women when they're dying in battle the way they used to. Like because who's gonna take care of the women? They have to be taken care of, they don't work, they don't read, they don't go out there, they have babies. Like the women were damsels in distress. Okay, now a woman can be single and make money and have a life and doesn't need a man. That was not the case back then. So the idea about giving, he's like, we all give. I mean, if we weren't givers deep down, who would ever marry a woman? Meaning to him, that's all about giving, right? Or migadlim banim. Oh my God, that's your kishkas. Like, why would you ever want to have children? All my money goes to them. All my time goes to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait till they're all footing their own expenses. And my husband and I are totally happy at our empty nest. I love not having to think about dinner. We can both take care of ourselves. You know, like, why would you want kids if there wasn't a piece of you that's like, you're a giver? And it's really your godly part, meaning when you think about the giving that we like to do, God is a giver. God also didn't have to give. Like, why did God make the world? How do we understand that? We talk about the idea that God is a giver, is overflowing, had to do tzimtzum. I don't know anything about Kabbalah, but I know that. God had to do tzimtzum in order to make room for us. But he did it, because he needs to give, he needs to spread, okay? So like that's what's going on here, we can do it. We can do it, and ulam ya'an ki ma'at me'od inyan netina ba'adam, al kain yivcharu b'nei adam b'asher yimtzu chen b'neihem. There's a limited amount, which is why we usually find people around us we like, and it's easy, and then itivu, and then you give them and you love them, et ela yachshavu ki'ilu shalahem hema, and they're like me, they're a part of me. Ach she'ar b'nei ha'adam l'nochrim v'zarim yachshavu, right? Yitcharu b'hem. But everybody else, they're foreigners and they're strangers and there's even competition. Yitcharu, meaning you're in other. So now we're in competition. I'll never forget Rav Gav Friedman, who's an Aish speaker, years and years, literally maybe 15 years ago. He came to speak to our students. He's a very dynamic speaker, got very expensive, very dynamic speaker. And I remember him standing, it was so eerie. He was talking about why everybody says nice things about people after they die. Nobody has a bad word to say. But when they were alive, that's not how we were talking. He said, you know why? Because when they were alive, they were in competition. But now they're out. And it was like, if that's true, that is so gross. But like, I think that might be true. Do you know what I mean? Like deep down, you're like, I'm not threatened by someone who's not here, but we're all sort of threatened by everyone around us. But not if you really view them as you. I wish more for my kids. I'm not threatened by my kids' success. They're an extension of me. Go me. Right? Like, think it's crazy. If my students become more learned than me, that's amazing. So it's really like this amazing moment of like giving over yourself and then feeling connected and then feeling one. Okay? Fine. Okay, so therefore, basically, right, so the whole concept is that you really can. It's like an amazing thing that you're saying about being able to manipulate your feelings through actions, okay? And that kind of brings us to the end, which is like that famous line, Acharei ha'pa'ulot, nimshachim halevavot, after the actions are drawn the feelings, which is what the Sefer Vayikra says, or why we don't eat the bones at the Korban Pesach, because we have to feel first class and kings and queens, so we act like kings and queens, and we don't suck on the bones and marrow and drape bones, and come on, act it. Right? It's the way we dress up on Shabbat and then feel fancy, and the way you dress up for a wedding and then feel good. You take a shower, you feel better. You put on makeup, you feel good. It's this acharei pilot, sit up straight, you feel, respect. Or do the power pose before an interview, stand there in front of the mirror, they say like this, and then you're like, feel power. Like, what is that? They say it works. Scientifically, psychologically, the lights go off on the brain scans, like it's working. Literally, things you do affect you inside, which means that there is hope. Meaning you can actually do things and think things and say things, and you will grow to like. I'll give you this, and then I'll end with one last thing, but look at this. This is my cute. It's kind of funny, but I don't know. I think it's cute. I think you'll appreciate it. Here, take one, pass it around. It is tips for cultivating love for the unlovable people in your life. This is literally what I do. This is why I look like I'm like everybody, because I fake it till I make it. So we can do it, meaning we can act nice, we can think nice, we can do this, because it'll happen. So I love these. This is like one. Remember, this is Hashem's creation. That's it. The more you love Hashem, the more you love anything and anyone He has made. You love me, you love my kids. That's how it works. That's how life works. So the more you love God, the more you love His creations. So work on your ahavat Hashem, it will help. Right? You could always focus on what you have in common. You can always find those things that connect you. We both blank. I don't know, but there's something out there. We both are women. We are both women. Do you know what I mean? We are both moms. We are both in education. We both live in Israel. Like we both get something. We're on the same page about something. Okay? Focus on any good qualities you admire. Anything. Either like other ones, other than the reason why, because we don't like them for some things, the other ones, or even the good side of this annoying one. Like I teach a class, Sefer on Midot or Tzadikim. So in this Midah book, he goes through like the good and the bad of every Midah. So every Midah can be channeled for good. So like, I love this Midah of hers, I just don't like how she's using it, but that's a start. You admire the Midah, you admire the tree, okay? Or think about you, which is sort of like what you were talking a little bit about. Something with this person is hard for you. I need to change myself. He or she is pushing some button. That's what like works for me a lot. This is about me because other people seem fine with him or her. So it's a me thing. It's not a him or her thing. This is about me and her, not her. So now you have to think about you. It's about, stop thinking the love will come when they change, right? You change. Or say yet. I don't like her yet. But this is a work in progress, and I'm going to work on it. Like there's no such thing as I don't like someone, but this is a hard one for me. You really challenge me, and you have to, and then you have to think about why. Okay, think of it as we don't have a lot in common, or we won't work well together, or we really have different views, but that obviously doesn't mean you don't like the person. I really think about, you don't have to be best friends, we always say, but really like, do you hate them? That's really strong. You don't have to love them, you don't even have to work with them, you don't have to keep dating them, but like, you can like them, like, calm down. I do this a lot where I really have this empathy I was saying before, you daven for them. I feel bad. I feel like everyone has something that they're working on that's hard for them, that's challenging for them. The person who always comes late, the person who's sarcastic, whatever, the person who talks a lot in shul, they're all like, yes, yeah, that's, and I daven for them, that they can work on that, because I see that that's hard for them. So like, that doesn't mean I don't like them, okay? I told this to my daughter once when she wasn't getting along with someone in her class when she was like in 3rd grade. I go, Leora, think about why her mother likes her. And she's like, I don't know why. And I said, think, if you were her mom. And she said 3 nice things about her. It was so cute. It was so cute. So that works. Notice the word kamocha. Right, like, I love that. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So I always think about self-esteem. Love him or her like you love yourself. The more comfortable you are with yourself, as we all know, the more comfortable you are with other people. Let's be honest. It's always the people who are most comfortable with themselves who make room for everybody else. It's that whole self-esteem game going on. And lastly, the kamocha reminds you that you also have annoying things about yourself, yet you love yourself. So love him, love her like yourself. You love yourself, what about that thing you do with your fingernails and with your tongue and with your eye, whatever. So it's I once heard, point a finger at someone and 3 are pointing back at you. So I always do that. Whenever I want to say something about it's so annoying that he, about my husband or one of the kids, I'm like, first I have to say 3 things about me that are probably annoying for them. And then the whole thing kind of comes down and he's fine. So I think this is the kind of, I don't know, it helps, it's good, we're always on, we're always moving towards this. And the idea, by the way, that to close with the Uncle Moishi song, right? Zek klal gadol b'Torah. So if you look, Rav Melamed, who we all love in Israel, for his Pinei Halacha, his Halacha books, and he's just a gem in Israel, and his wife is amazing woman. Rabbanit Melamed that nobody talks about enough. They live in Har Bracha, they live in an amazing yeshuv in the Shomron, and she's like a powerhouse. And our Shana Bet girls go there for a Shabbaton every year, and she speaks with them for a long time. She grew up on a kibbutz, totally secular, grew up in a kid's home on a kibbutz, was not with her parents ever kind of thing. And she became this religious woman, is married to a huge Talmud Chacham Gadol in Israel now, who rewrote the Shulchan Aruch for the modern day Jew. People don't learn Shulchan Aruch Mishnah Berurah anymore. They learn Pinei Halacha. Everyone learns Pinei Halacha. And it's online, and it's in English, and he's an amazing person. So in a book he has about certain mitzvot ben adam l'chaveiro, he writes a little bit about this line, Ze klal gadol b'Torah. Why? Why is it a klal gadol b'Torah? And he suggests the easy answer is that because more than half the mitzvot that we do every day have to do with our lives are so ben adam l'chaveiro oriented. The mitzvot we do between ourselves, and it's a lot of what we do is the, be a nice person stuff. So is that klal gadol b'Torah? That's half, if not more, he says, of Judaism. Fine. I think that's what we always thought, when we sing the Uncle Moishi song. But the idea, he says, you could also think of it, he writes this beautiful paragraph about how he says, it's also about the idea that if you don't love another person, I'm not really sure how much you love God. It's a klal gadol b'Torah, meaning he says, I'll just read his Hebrew. Adam she'ena ohev et chaviro, et achav et bnei amo. Let's face it, someone who doesn't love his friends, this is the Maharal. Someone who doesn't love his friends, he quotes Maharal, someone who doesn't love his friends, doesn't love his nation, doesn't love his neighbors. La'olam lo yuchal la'amin b'Hashem. Really can't really believe in God. U'memela lo yuchal l'kayim shum mitzvah kefi shetzarich. Then you really can't be doing any mitzvah. Adam she'ena ohev et re'av hu adam enochi. A person who can't love others is a little too wrapped up in himself. There's always going to be that gava there. I can't love someone who this. Well, they come late. Well, they talk in shul. They don't give money to the school. Okay, meaning you think that they should blank. So that's your vision for the world, your vision for them. That's a very self-centered way of, running this world in your head. So you're Adam Enochi, you're all about Anochi. Hasagor b'toch atzmo, you're locked up in yourself. V'hadoeg rak l'tavotav u'litzrachav ha'pratiyim. And you're worried about your needs, your desires. V'adam kazeh, he says, a person like this, eno misugal laharim et einav. Let's be honest, they can't really lift up their eyes. V'lish'ol mi barat ha'olam. They can't really ask, who created this world? They don't see other. So how much can they really see God? It's like when you look at the Psukim of Moshe at the sneh, and he looks at a burning bush and he says, Madua lo yavar hasneh. Why doesn't this bush burn? And then it says, God saw that he went to look at the sneh, so he called out to him and said, Moshe, Moshe. The Torah spends a lot of time telling us that Moshe said, I'm going to go see what's there, I need to go see why it doesn't burn. Then God saw that he needed to go see, then he saw, and then God saw him, and then he called him. And you're like, okay, what's the big deal? He went to go see the sneh. No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I think about it, but clearly we're being told that when you see something, and you can see it, and you can notice it, and you can ask about it, God thought that's what a leader is. Because a leader sees, notices, is curious, looks for what's beyond what I see. It's a lot of beautiful qualities there in Moshe. So the idea that you don't see others, and that you can't see from another person's vantage point, and that you don't understand what it's like for that person, and you can't imagine what that person's life is like, and how far they've come, or how far they need to come, or what they have to deal with. You're so locked in yourself, I'm not so sure you see God. I don't really know how firm you could be. What kind of midot are those, you know? So it really reminds me, there's this beautiful custom, if you see in some sidurim, I think Chabad sidurim have it. Sometimes you'll see before Shacharit, we say, there's like this line, you could say, Hideni muchanu mezuzah l'kayim mitzvah say shel v'ahavta l'recha k'mocha. Okay, that's in like some sidurim. Not in like the art scroll, but like I've seen it. And I thought originally that it was like, okay, before I daven, I just want to say, like, I don't know why, it seemed like an easy one to say. Like, I'll love all your people, God. Okay, now can you make my grandmother better? Like, it felt like that. Like, I take on to love everybody. Okay, now I get to daven and say what I want. And then Rav Melamed writes, that's why we say that in the beginning of Tefillah. Because in order to get to a place where you can daven and be humble and talk to God, you have to be a person who can be humble and see people and love people. If you can shrink yourself at 7:55 in the morning and say, Hineni muchanu mezuzah l'kayim mitzvah say shel v'ahavta l'recha k'mocha, you have to put yourself in a place where, okay, now you can daven. Because now you can accept God and see God and be small, to be small, you know? So that's, just to, as we continue, like to end, really as we continue to defend our homeland and really, God help us that this is not a blip in Jewish history, and that after waiting 2,000 years to come home, we are not going to leave again, which would be very sad. So as we daven for a lot of mercy and strength and victory, I really think that because we are taught sinah chinam, got us kicked out of here 2,000 years ago with the Romans, and it wasn't the Romans, as I'll say. The Romans didn't destroy the Beit Midrash, we did. So Hamas and Hezbollah and the fundamentalist Muslims are not what's going to take Israel away from us. We will. We'll lose it. And the sinah chinam, as we all know, is going to be a big problem. So we should fight it as much as we can. We're working on avat chinam. We never get a break from that. Hopefully some of this helps, but if we all come together, it should really be like Levan Hashem, L'tekei Olam, B'malchut Shaddai. We're on a team. We do our best to help each other, and you really have to try to understand, love, share. We work on it every day with the annoying people at work, annoying people in our families, annoying people in our But I think if you're really trying, hopefully God will count that towards that's points for us, so that should help. Thanks for coming.
I just wanted to really thank Bracha for making time to learn with us. I wanted to also thank Claudine for hosting. Really.
My sister's classmate. Shout out class of 1991.
That's right. And again, thank you everyone for coming. And I think there's been hopefully take a little time to socialize, maybe still some questions. Yeah, just wonderful.